Good afternoon. Ooh, boy. See, these mics are very powerful. I want you to know we bought this in the PI. But anyway, good afternoon to all of you. And we thank you for coming and visiting us in our home. I want you to know that this is being televised, unless any one of you object of it being televised. And I want to ask your permission first. Yes. It's okay? Okay, so it is being televised, and what we'll do is we'll also give you a copy of the CD, at least so you'll be able to take home, should you want to be able to share with the rest of your members in the House of Representatives or with your constituents. So ladies and gentlemen and the people of Guam, I'd like to introduce you, of course, and as you can see who are here, are members of the House of Representatives from the Philippines. And they're here, of course, at our invitation on a goodwill friendship competition, a friendly competition of basketball, which will be held tomorrow evening at Okadu High School. And we decided to use this opportunity then and turn it into a fundraiser in which we'll be able to help the victims of the Japan tsunami and earthquake disasters. And I think what will be good for us to do is that if we can go around the room and ask you to introduce yourselves, because I'm sure that the Filipino community who are here will either recognize you or might even be related to you, and before you know it, may even call you up before you actually leave the island and ask you to come back. So I'd just like to go ahead and start. Then I'll just have, let me see. Yes, I want to start then with you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, Madam Senators. Allow me to introduce myself once again. I am Congressman Evgeny Imano from the 2nd District of Misamis Oriental. And if there are Filipinos who are from our province, we'd like to greet them in a different language, because in Philippines we have different languages also. So maayong hapon sa atong mga igsuon nga mga Bisaya o gainaot nga mananaw mo ugma sa among duwa batok sa inyong mga lihit at turay po dinhi. Please.
Good afternoon again, Madam Speaker and Madam Senators. Again, I'm Freddy Tinga. I represent the 2nd District of the City of Taguig. I also chair the Committee on Information and Communications Technology. And again, we'd like to say how wonderful our stay has been here. Thank you for having us. And we see a lot of bright opportunities here in Guam and for cross-border trade and transactions. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon again, Madam Speaker. I am Dato Arroyo. I am from the 2nd District of Camarines Sur, and I was talking with the other legislators, and I'm very happy to note that there are a lot of Bicolanos here in Guam, and not only that, there's also a large Ilonggo and Kapampangan community. So I am very happy about that, and I hope we hope to be able to meet them also. And as Congressman Tinga said, we hope that there are a lot more other opportunities. And like Congressman Emano, if you would permit, I would like to greet our friends now from Bicol, from Pampanga, and from Negros. So just maraming hapon po sa mga kabos. May pagkapanapon at maayong hapon po sa inyong panan.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Madam Senators. Again, thank you for having us. And I am Lord Alan J. Velasco from the province of Marinduque. I'd just like to greet all Filipinos who are here in Guam. To my kababayans, if there are people from Marinduque, I wish them, I hope that sila ay nasa mabuting kalagayan at isang saganang pamumuhay, hindi lang po para sa mga kababayan ko sa Guam, kundi po mga taga-Pilipinas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members in Congress, and likewise the senators. I am Cesar Halosos, representing the 3rd District of Zamboanga del Norte. That is the southern part of the Philippines, Mindanao. For the kababayans from Mindanao, who are mostly Bisayan, I would like to greet them mayong hapon kaninyong tanan. O if there are some Muslim brothers likewise in Guam, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Madam Senators. I am Romel Amatong, representing the province of Compostela Valley, a southern tip of Mindanao. And I'm so glad and happy to be here for the first time in Guam. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Senator, Madam Speaker. I'm Neil Montejo of the party list Anwaray. I am from Leyte and Samar. Sa mga waray-waray nga ani Guam, pagkita kamot mulay buwas, maharisyot mulay buwas, damot kiritaon, and hopefully ugma makita ta 7 o'clock sa gabi. Daghang salamat.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Senators. Let me greet the people of Guam, or allow me to greet the people of Guam in our local dialect, since many Bicolanos are here, especially the Director of Labor. Maray na hapon sa Indago Boss, and we are so grateful for your warm welcome and hospitality, and I hope that the people of Guam, the Bicolanos and the Filipinos will watch the game tomorrow, the friendly game tomorrow. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Senators. I am Jonathan Yambao from the 1st District of Zamboanga, Sibugay, and would like to invite all Filipinos tomorrow, especially those who hail from my district and from the province of Zamboanga, Sibugay. Adunay dakong bugno, ugma sa basketball, batok sa legislatura, sa panggamhanan sa atong nasod nga Pilipinhon ug sa Guam. So nang hinaot ko nga suportahan ninyo kini para kini sa mga biktima sa tsunami. Salamat.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Scott Davis Lanete from the 3rd District of Masbate, and once again, very grateful and sincerely appreciating the efforts which you have extended to us and to the Filipino community. We hope that in the near future we could have a very meaningful and mutual partnership with each other. To the Masbateño community here in Guam, hope you can attend and join our fundraising activity tomorrow. So see you all there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, Madam Senators. I am Sherwin Tugna of Citizens Battle Against Corruption Party List, or CIBAC Party List. Our constituents or voters came from different provinces of the nation. So let me address our constituents who are Filipinos here in Guam, and I am thanking them for thanking them that they welcomed us here, and we are inviting them tomorrow for our basketball game, and we are wishing that in the future we can reciprocate the wonderful and warm welcome that you gave to us right from the very moment that we stepped in this beautiful island of Guam. Maraming salamat po.
Madam Speaker, sorry, if you would allow me, I would like to invite the spouses of the representative from Leyte and Caloocan, Mr. Richard Gomez and Mr. Johnny Uy, if they could possibly join us. Johnny, please join us.
And Madam Speaker, if you would still allow me, I wasn't able to introduce myself. I forgot. I am Alfredo Gordin Jr., representing Ako Bicol Party List.
Welcome, yes.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I'm Richard Gomez. I'm the spouse of Lucy Torres Gomez, the representative of the 4th District of Leyte. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here once again. I've been here a couple of times, and me and my family love your place. We love Guam. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Madam Senator. Thank you very much for accommodating us here at Guam. I'm Johnny Uy. I'm the husband of Congresswoman Mitch Kayon. In behalf of her, we'd like to say thank you for everything.
Welcome as well. Are you missing anybody else? Well, I want to thank you again and welcome all of you. I'd like to recognize as well members of our legislature, some of them that we have here present this afternoon. And to my left is the Legislative Secretary, Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes. To her left is Senator Silva Mana Tyron, and Mana Silva Tyron, I'm sorry. And amongst you, the rose amongst, of course, the thorns, I'm sorry. But in this case, she is a rose, so, and it's Senator Aline Yamashita. Yeah. So welcome again. I want to thank you very much. I was going to, actually, at the very end, is extend an invitation, yes, to our fellow, Kababayans are here and family members as well in the community. But you did an excellent job, and thank you for doing it as well in your language. And as I understand, is that as you individually did your introduction and your greeting, that you did it also in your dialect, which actually varies with the different provinces, and that some of you may not even understand it. So one thing for sure, we didn't understand it, but from the gist of what you were saying, we knew that it was definitely a goodwill and friendship and an extension of invitation. I'd like to go ahead and start this. This is a very informal dialogue that we really would like to have with you, and just give you maybe a little overview of some of the things that we're looking at. I mentioned earlier this afternoon that there's so many things that will be actually happening here on Guam as a result of the military buildup. And as you know, because several of our members have actually gone to the Philippines and spoken with your leadership and even the president and your Department of Labor officials, was basically to say that there is an anticipation of alien laborers that the military is looking at bringing onto Guam as a result of the buildup. Now, it's not something that they're saying is going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen in an extended period of time. But the numbers are definitely large because this is a massive buildup. It would be unprecedented since actually the World War II. So that's one area that maybe we could have some dialogue, and I don't intend to have it end here. This is something I think we need to be able to continue. The second item that I think also is really very important to us, and there's been a lot of discussion, not just among the leadership and here in Guam. I was actually even discussed in Washington, D.C. Our Lieutenant Governor is currently in Washington, D.C., and actually meeting with Homeland Security people to consider the possibility of a visa waiver for three countries. Basically, we're looking at will be the Philippines, China, and Russia. So that dialogue continues and has been going on for some time. And how maybe we can best address this, because we've been actually taking this issue on our own, but there may be a possibility in your own Congress that whether a resolution could be drafted maybe and sent here, that or could be forwarded to Washington. The third, which is something that has been happening for some time but nothing formal in the sense, is the possibility of a trade mission. Our former colleague, Senator Espaldon, of course, who was really instrumental in having you come here. He and I are, members of the Association of Pacific Island Legislators, and what that is a group of islands, not just Guam, CNMI, but it actually covers all of FSM, as far out as the Marshall Islands, Kiribati, and even Hawaii and American Samoa. So there are 2 senators from each one of the islands. And just last year in one of our general assemblies, because although we've been going from island to island and actually sharing and, of course, wanting to help each other out, we know that we need to also start to reach out to some of the larger islands, and so we have actually passed a resolution to send actually out to your country, to Korea, and to Taiwan. And I'm very happy to hear that the Philippines was actually the first to respond in getting the dialogue continue. So those are just to kind of put on the table. I'm sure there may be other topics in which our members may want to bring up, or yourselves. I will be more than happy, of course, to partake in that dialogue. And I'd like to welcome Senator Sam Mabini also for joining us this afternoon. Yes.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, and a warm holiday to all you congressmen here and to the spouses of the congresswomen who could not make it. We extend our warm holiday to you and to your families in the Philippines right now. And though we are here today on a informal roundtable discussion, but more importantly for a fundraiser charity to help our neighbor country, Japan, in the disaster that they have gone through, it brings together countries coming together to help a fellow country in need. And with that effort being made, I want to extend my undunkulu masidus masi, very many thank yous to you guys for coming together with Guam to support a good cause. More importantly, as we talk about possible trade missions, talk about possible relationships with the different provinces that you folks are from, I was very delighted to talk to one of your congressmen, Lord J. Allen, and to talk about the possible relationships and developments of not just economic drivers for your region, but also development for other industries and other creativities that can come to fruition. And one that we talked about was maybe a full development in as far as sports tourism. And I know as Philippines is known for having great basketball players and a very strong national team, we've got different sports here that we work closely with, and one of Guam's favorite sports is baseball. And of course, with the relationships that some of us share up here, having being avid athletes in the past, not of the present, but in the past, we can continue to bridge the relationship in supports of enhancing and supporting development of sports tourism like baseball and bringing it out to that province. So, Madam Speaker, I'm very excited. We also talked about we have a congressman who's the chair on energy, and I had the opportunity to speak with him to share some of the ideas that Guam has already implemented, like the recycling efforts and the bottle bill, and that he was very interested in. So it's relationships like that, Madam Speaker and Congressman, that bring to this table a very important ingredient that we as representatives from our own countries can come together, work our ideas, bring our relationships together, build upon that, and make it for a win-win in our community. And Madam Speaker, I'm just very grateful that you've extended this invitation, and more importantly, so, Madam Speaker, before the end of this roundtable discussion, I'd like to request if our former Senator Jim Espaldon would join us, because he played a very integral part with keeping the relationship of the Guam legislature, working closely with the congressman and also with the Senate. And I'd like for him to join us at the table, Madam Speaker, if I may, if I can motion that, if there's no objection by you. It's because of his continued relationship, even as a former senator, that continues to bring full creativity and further development and further relationships from the Philippines to work closely with Guam, and I'm very excited for that. Madam Speaker. So with that being said, I want to, first to our listening audience out there, extend an invitation as my Filipino kababayans and representatives, my counterparts have asked and requested that there is a charity shootout tomorrow. We expect to win the basketball game tomorrow. I'm putting it up to a challenge. I've brought a secret weapon from the Philippines. It's called Stop Pain, and it's going to help the joints and the muscles with all the players. I guarantee you I will be the first to put it on. I bought this in Divisoria, and I hope it works. But in that gist, I want to extend my undunkling to Cedros Masi. Thank you for coming out, and I thank you for the invitation for us to come over there. And I just also want to thank Senator Espaldon for facilitating a lot of what happens today, what's happening right now. Cedros Masi, and thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, thank you very much. And Jim, thank you for joining us here. And maybe I'd like to ask you, maybe if you can just briefly, tell us, of course, how this all, came to fruition. So please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, this was an event that I have to give credit to where credit is due. Mr. Ron Revilla was working on this, and I know that he had contacted you, Madam Speaker, to issue an invitation to our counterparts in the Philippine Congress, which you gracefully did, and of course the Speaker of the Congress in the Philippines accepted. But there was a certain point, and when we got the information of who would be attending, one of the key members, of course, which drew a lot of excitement, was Congressman Pacquiao. And that was before I believe that the contract for a fight with Shane Mosley was signed. And so, of course, he was willing to come out and be a part of this delegation. However, we all know that since then he signed that contract. We'll be fighting in May. And when that occurred, there was a question of whether the good congressman would be able to join this delegation. And so a lot of the initial sponsors were a little apprehensive, saying, well, if he's not coming out, we may not sponsor this. And when I had heard that, I said that was unacceptable. We did not issue the invitation, Madam Speaker, to Congressman Pacquiao in particular as world champion, but we issued it to him as a member of the Congress, as part of this delegation. And I thought it was only right that with or without the congressman, which we hope he might still come, that it was only appropriate, only right that this relationship continue forward. And with that, I did promise the organizer of this event that even without those sponsors, that I would basically help with the accommodations, and I found some friends who were willing to help me on this one. And again, I think it's very important going forward, because I've always believed, Madam Speaker, that for us to really take advantage of the benefits that both the Philippines and Guam can derive from such a relationship, it first must be founded in an interpersonal relationship, a very solid foundation to be able to look each other in the eye, make friends, understand issues on both sides, and from there we can go forward, again, speaking on a very personal level, as opposed to just emails or texts without even meeting the people behind the names. And so I thought this was very important. And so I'm very thrilled that the congressmen who are here today are very distinguished guests, were able to make it. I thank the Speaker for allowing me to come. I did make a visit to the Philippine Congress about 3 weeks ago, met with the Speaker. He gave the blessing for this whole event and to happen. And I'm very thrilled and very honored that the congressmen who are here did accept that invitation and are here for this. And we do have many issues we can talk about. They have expressed interest to really try to understand the visa waiver program. And I think it's very timely, because when you start thinking about the tragedy that just happened in Japan, and knowing full well that our tourism-based economy is really out of Japan, depends upon Japan, we need to open other avenues. And we've talked about it for years. And I mentioned it to the congressmen. They are definitely willing to try to understand it, trying to listen. And I'm hoping that in the end, that the congressmen will go back and talk to their colleagues in the Congress and perhaps pass a resolution or show support that we can then forward to our own United States Congress to say, hey, Guam is interested in this. The people in the Philippines are interested in coming and visiting over here. I don't think there's a danger in terms of what the immigration officials are concerned about illegal aliens staying on island and hiding. This is a very small island with a lot of relationships. I think it'd be very beneficial for those Guam residents to be able to see their families, bring them over here, show them how they've prospered and succeeded and are contributing to our island's growth. And then I also asked the congressmen, while they're here, is to almost just encourage the Filipino residents of this island to continue to contribute to the growth of this island. And I think that will play a very key role. I know that the Filipinos community here will be very encouraged to hear from them, will be very encouraged to see them live and in person. And then, again, with this being a friendship and a goodwill type of a get-together, that will set the stage for further ties and stronger ties between Guam and the Philippines. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So I put 3 topics on the table, so now we can have the dialogue. Anyone would like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, if I may. First, I would like to go back to the statement of former Senator Espaldon. We would like to thank him for facilitating the event that we will be able to play here in Guam, and to the Filipinos who are here and who are here now and who would have loved to watch Pacquiao play basketball tomorrow, we would like to apologize, because he really did sign the first invitation. What we did was, when the invitation arrived in Congress, I asked all those who were interested to come to sign the invitation for their confirmation, and Manny Pacquiao signed the invitation, and we were we transmitted the letter already to Senator Jim and of course to Ron, and what happened was that I think Pacquiao's coach, Freddie Roach, is so strict in his training now, and in fact, if as I have said during lunchtime, that he was not even allowed to vote during the impeachment process of our Ombudsman Gutierrez because of his training. But one of our colleague will be arriving tomorrow in the name of Congressman Ben Noel, the chairman of the Committee on Accounts, and we were hoping that he could bring along Manny with him. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but I don't think that it's going to be a very slim chance that he will be able to join us tomorrow. But let it be assured that we will try to make up for, if Pacquiao will not be able to arrive, our colleague, we will try to make out for it. As I have said during lunchtime also, we have the bull here who's going to take charge of tomorrow's game. We have the MVP here who's going to also take charge, and as Richard Gomez said, that he'll also try to make it as fun as possible for everybody. And I'm so sorry, and again, we apologize if we had caused any inconvenience to the Guamanian people. And secondly, Madam Speaker, I'm so interested with, because when Congressman Jim Espaldon went to Congress, we had a short and a brief discussion regarding the plans of Guam to build up and to construct new bases. And during lunchtime, we have a problem right now. In Libya alone, we have about 160,000 overseas Filipino workers there who are displaced already because of the ongoing war. And if it will spread, I hope it would not, but within the entire Middle East, more overseas Filipino workers will be displaced. And we were hoping if we could start somewhere, not only that we're interested and excited for the basketball, but of course we also have legislation and we have to do our job here. And how I wish and hope and pray that we could start somewhere and we could inform our president, the leadership of the House, if we could draft letters or resolution where we could start somewhere. So hopefully those people, the Filipino workers who were displaced in the Middle East countries, will be given the opportunity to continue in bringing livelihood to their family, Madam Speaker.
You know, and it's interesting that that you bring that up, because we've actually considered that also. See, one of the things that we've been telling Congress as well here for Guam is that we'd like for them to be able to try to offer a lot of contracts or jobs to, our people here on Guam first, that, the first rights of refusal would be us. Then the other would be our neighbors, of course, in FSM, because we understand that, they're able to freely travel to Guam and any parts of the United States because of the Compact Impact Agreement. And then the other, and this is where you come in, is where you can set, I'm sure, then either priorities in terms of who then would you allow in preparation to be the first maybe to be sent out as, workers if they're going to be able to come here, that those that are displaced, that maybe because they are skilled laborers, experienced laborers already, and they've worked elsewhere, like you said, in the Middle East, that then those can be your priority. I mean, we can't set that for you, but we definitely need to get the dialogue going because there are lots of preparations. There are concerns, of course, for us, and another real big issue is the health issue, whether they would have health insurance, what would happen to them, should there be, an emergency, a disaster, something that we may not be able, either our hospital or even Naval Hospital can address. And I know the discussions we've had with the Pentagon and the Department of Defense is that the answer was that, well, in a couple of days, if we aren't able to address the issue, then the individual will have to be sent back to the point of origin, point of hire. And, and of course, that's not necessarily, the real answer either. The other is housing for them. Then, of course, their mobility in the community. The third issue that public health is concerned about, for anybody coming in, is the proper immunization, for any type of, diseases that, could be brought into the island, because like even our school children who come from everywhere, there's a law in which, children must be immunized, and some of them have actually fallen through the cracks, and then we've got, not a near epidemic, but cases, of course, of, a TB in some of our schools from off-island children. So those are just some of the issues that, we all need to consider. And maybe through, like I said, this dialogue and based on reports that have been submitted to the governor's office and to the legislature, at least from public health, we can actually send to you as well, so that then you can, determine exactly, what type of procedures, standard operating procedures that you want to set as well for, the workers.
Madam Speaker, if I may go back to the statement of former Senator Jim Espaldon earlier that regarding the visa waiver program, if this will happen, it will be a two-pronged result, meaning if that will happen, then there will be more tourists for the island of Guam, as well as it will also be helpful to our nation because that can also send our workers so that it will create employment for our people. But in the end, what we can do is we can make a resolution, and our group here is a big group, our delegation, which can voice out the sentiments of Guam that they would want a visa waiver program, but still this would be addressed to the discretion of the U.S. government, I understand, because since this is a U.S. territory, this will be addressed to their sound discretion, but still it will be up to the people of Guam to voice out what they would want for this island, subject to the regulations that will be imposed by the U.S. Homeland Security. But still, it will be helpful if on our part as a partner of Guam to have a resolution, as well as the people of Guam to speak out that they would want this visa waiver program, so that the U.S. Homeland Security would allow this, and this will benefit both countries. And we are in full support of that, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, if I may, in all support with those efforts, we really appreciate that as Oversight Chair of Tourism and at the urging of our governor and the Congresswoman to work closely with Homeland Security to work on the statute, the 110-29, the regulations the protocols that are need to be put in place. As you know, that our neighboring islands of Northern Marianas has a parole provision in that, and we're hoping that with the timeline due in May that we can be included. And we say that any support that can come our way in support of that will continue to have an impact so that our leaders can also share that impact and we can have a unified voice together in asking Congress to make that truly happen. So with that being said, as Oversight Chair, I want to extend my maraming salamat po and undangko na si Diyos Masi for your efforts in supporting this. Thank you.
Just to give you a little bit more information too, because although this may be a topic of discussion right now, but we really need to actually look 5 years, 10 years down the line, because our driving force here in Ireland, yes, is tourism and the military. And because of what's really been happening around the world, and when you consider, of course, the limitation of even Guam, for that matter, or other places, is that my understanding that the way right now a lot of the Japanese tourists, who is right now our biggest number comes to Guam, is that there is a promotion and a movement to actually go and visit instead in Okinawa. And because of the movement of 8,000 Marines and their families, then jobs, of course, will be lost, and then tourism also become a problem. So the Japanese Diet has actually been assisting that community and have been, building museums, building an aquarium, providing this like a business district. I mean, you name it. They're doing everything they can to be able to make up for that withdrawal. And by doing that, of course, when you consider their equidistance from Japan to Okinawa as is from Japan to Guam, and we could easily be hurt by that. So we have to think further down the line, and that's the reason why there is this movement to consider other travelers elsewhere and expand beyond just only the Japanese market.
Yeah. Good afternoon again, Madam Speaker, if I may. It's been a very interesting discussion, both this afternoon and earlier over lunch. And as you pointed out, Guam is dependent on two very fickle industries, tourism and the military and the support of the federal government. I used to be the mayor for 9 years of an area that a lot of you probably have been to, Taguig, which is the up-and-coming central business district of the country. And 10 years ago, you wouldn't have even known, where the hell Taguig was. Nobody, if I said I was mayor of Taguig, you'd say, who the hell are you? And what has spurred the development of Taguig, and this is, I think, very relevant in the case of Guam, is that used to be a military base. That entire Fort Bonifacio area used to be a local military base, which was privatized and is now primed to become the country's new financial district and the new central business district. And over the last few years, it's really been driven by the business process outsourcing industry. One of the problems we constantly have in the Philippines, which you don't have here, is the quality of IT infrastructure. The complaints of investors going to our country, which we're trying to address, is really the high cost of power as well as the high cost of connectivity. I think both those issues have been addressed in Guam. And the thing we see is, with the help of Filipino investment, Filipino skills, this is probably an industry that can be grown very quickly in Guam, making the economic pie bigger. This would definitely help the local economy in terms of job creation and wealth creation. But the secondary beneficiary for this would be the Philippines. We are your closest neighbor in terms of skilled manpower. the proposal to create visa waivers, I think, is excellent for both the Philippines, China, and Russia. These are your drivers moving forward. And the unique situation you have, being a U.S. territory, which a lot of people look at as being a safe investment haven, but actually, and this is the funny thing, you used to be located in the wrong part of the world, but with the economy the way it's going now, you actually are located in the right part of the world. This is where everything's happening. And we'd like to explore possibilities in growing the information and communications technology sector in Guam. We've had that experience in the Philippines. I think we would be an ideal partner to grow this industry, to create a third leg on which your economy would stand on: tourism, the military, and technology. And definitely the question of Filipinos coming in, working here, growing that economy would be less of an issue if the economic pie gets bigger. We share your strategic vision and looking at other industry sectors to move Guam forward. We'd like to present our country as a partner in that growth. We do have a lot of both skill sets and investors who I think would be looking at Guam as a possible partner in this sector. And moving forward, I don't think there is any reason to doubt that the territory of Guam and the Philippine nation would be positively benefited by the growth of this industry. These are things we'd like to look at. Maybe you could give us ideas of how, for example, the Guam legislature would be able to create tax measures, if that is possible, to support growth in that particular sector. It's a very power-intensive sector. I'd like to know what kind of energy prices we're talking about here. I mean, that's one of the problems you have in the Philippines. You have a fairly high energy cost. And in terms of IT infrastructure, if possible, these are things also we'd like to know about. What kind of IT infrastructure does the island have? And from our experience, it's excellent, but we'd like to see what else you have here, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Actually, what you brought up is something that I've always been interested in. Interestingly enough, I've had individuals who have spoken to me several times about the possibility of building an IT kind of industry in Guam. It's something that we've never really delved into, but if you have countries like Singapore, Philippines, warm tropical countries, but still with very strong IT industry, then Guam might be an ideal place. One investor who I believe is based out of Philippines and also has offices in Hong Kong was speaking to me about the issue about having certain data that's federally, or that's U.S. data that's being collected because of all the phone banks or whatnot in some certain Asian countries, and being that Guam is a U.S. soil, that this might be the ideal place where it can be protected. It still, falls under the federal. So this is something that I think, as you had mentioned earlier, that if there are in fact industry or investors in the Philippines that would be interested. Now, we certainly want Guam to capitalize on that. We want our people to benefit from that. And I think that might be something that we could explore. At least that's something that I'm interested in. I spoke with some of the senators during lunch, and we're talking about tourism. And I know that we've received, I think it was Governor Garcia and his entourage from Bataan, and they gave a wonderful presentation, and our president of FCG there can attest to it, where he presented Bataan as being a great tourist spot or whatnot. And I would like to think that we have a lot of Filipinos, just like Madam Speaker had mentioned, that we're looking at maybe other countries who would be interested in our beautiful island for a vacation spot. So getting your support as well to encourage Guam as a tourism destination would be very beneficial. As you know, Philippine Airlines, since they've been here, they've really picked up the travels. We benefit from it because of the affordable travel to Guam, so I think we can capitalize. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that recycling and Guam going green is something that we really value, but the challenge that we've had has always been where the destination of the recycling goods are. And I understand that Philippines does, I don't know if any of you are very familiar with your recycling centers in the Philippines, but if that's something that maybe we can work together where I believe we have the bottle bill that's out. We also recycle steel, aluminum, and whatnot. But if that could be coordinated, that would be something that would be really beneficial to the island. And that, last but not least, in working with the local community and the OFWs that are on island, one of the things I've noticed that would be something I think you should pay attention to is that when your OFWs are in Guam and when they have sudden dire needs, medical or a death, the only place they can turn to have been the people of Guam. And the people of Guam have been very generous in helping them maybe return back to their families. But this is something but that's been the burden of the people here when that happens. From my personal experience, having had volunteered at a radio show, sometimes the appeals have to go there in order to get assistance. So these are citizens of the Philippines who are seeking assistance from their home country to return back home. If something like that could also be recognized by the government, that'd be appreciated.
Benjamin, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One more time, I echo the welcome. We're very happy, honored, and humbled that you are here and that you took up the challenge of playing basketball with some of my colleagues. I will not be playing because they want to win. So, I said, that's okay. You guys can play because I know you want to win, and I won't be very helpful there. But my areas of great concern, and certainly we can learn from you, are in the areas of teaching and learning in the world of disabilities. How do you help your families? How do we ensure that all children have opportunities to learn and to become whatever it is they want to become? And so clearly I think we have learned that we need to do things differently. It can't be the same old, else we're going to get the same old, right? So school to work initiatives, the infusion of technology at the beginning, but really for me most importantly is the notion of respect for everybody. We need to get back to the respect for all people. That's what we need to get back to. Our issues on Guam are escalating in the world of bullying. We bully a lot here. We have high violence here. We have certain issues that we really need to get a handle on. So I'm very interested in everything that Madam Speaker and Senator Munya Barnes, Senator Mabini have raised and Senator Espaldon, but I tag on those family issues. And so as we continue and grow our relationship, that's what I'm interested in. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
May I just add, I'm not sure of the province, but my understanding that some of our senators have actually gone to a place where all the individuals in this particular, like a resort, are all individuals with a disability. Everyone from, infancy to senior citizens, and they really run the whole resort, and they're all inclusive in everything that they do there. So maybe that's something you might want to also share, with us and the senator, because I know that is definitely an area of interest, for her.
Well, the point you raised, Madam Senator, regarding values and creating an environment where people probably look at building a community first before just focusing on the bottom line and creating a more in the end, it becomes more profitable. Or this is what you call social entrepreneurship. This is something that's taking off in the Philippines. We have a model that we've seen grow over the years, and it's been pushed by an organization called Gawad Kalinga. I don't know if you're familiar with them. We've seen them grow. I in particular, and a lot of us here have worked with them, and that's probably a model you should look at, where creating a more helpful and more proactive community that is concerned more with raising the bar for everyone, in the end is a better model than pure capitalism. We've seen it work in a lot of our provinces, even in our cities, in our districts, and the next time around you are in the Philippines, this is definitely something you should look at. We are also seeing how this model actually merges with technology, as you mentioned, and education, and it creates its own ecosystem. An ecosystem that creates wealth. It's a wealth generation ecosystem, but it makes sure that, in the words of their founder, no one gets left behind. That the poorest of the poor get involved in the ecosystem and are not treated as mere peons or mere workers, but are actually part of the collective. And it's that kind of model we're very excited with in the Philippines. The founder, Mr. Tony Miloto, has been invited everywhere around the world, and I think it's a model for this day and age. And if you're looking at something like that, I would highly recommend that you get to look at what they're doing in the various districts that we represent. They're in most of the districts in the Philippines. And your next trip over, if you are interested, we'll make sure that that's a part of your visit, of your itinerary.
And we're always interested to go to the Philippines. In fact, we're talking about the next opportunity. We'll get to go visit, particularly for the shopping. And I thank you. You know, it's an honor and a privilege to share this time with you and come together to share some ideas. You know, as you know, the buildup is happening for Guam. It's monumental, and we will be looking to the Philippines for skilled labor workers as we emphasize and push to develop our own local skilled workers here on Guam. But it's also an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to come together and at least get some information and ask you to assist us in sharing your experiences with regard to the military, the U.S. military in your homeland and how it's affected your communities. Because there's so much that we need to know and prepare for as they prepare for this build-up here on Guam.
Oh, Congressman, I just wanted to share with you that Gawad Kalinga is actually alive on Guam, sir. I know that there's even a village called the Half-a-Day Village in Bulacan, Santa Maria, I think. So, yeah, there is. So there's a lot of Guam investors in some of the Gawad Kalinga villages in the Philippines. In fact, we're constantly raising, I think, $2,300 per home for the poorest of poor. So we're familiar, and in the U.S. we have the version of Habitat for Humanity, the sweat equity and all that. But what the difference is that they're building a village, whereas we build homes, individual homes. And speaking of homes, I wanted to share, we have a lot of Guamanians, Filipinos, Chamorros, whatnot, Guamanians, who invest a lot in the Philippines through condos, through maybe intermarriages, you know. And so a lot of our investments are actually present in the Philippines. And I know that here in Guam, we have a lot of Filipino investors as far as residents, long-time residents like Mr. Pangilinan. We have the Espaldon family. We have just various families here who have roots in the Philippines. But it would probably be beneficial, as well as we had mentioned earlier, to attract maybe some investors who would have a vested interest in Guam, helping our people grow as well, and helping us keep some of the revenue here on island too, you know, and of course we have it mutually benefiting. That would be something we would really look forward to.
Yes, because I might be adopted as a member of the Guam legislature. As I was sitting there. Anyway, I'd like to address the statement of Senator Silva, and when she said that what will be our insight regarding the buildup of military infrastructure here. In our case, it was completely different because there was no in the past 10 years there was no military buildup, but instead the U.S. military base was removed from our nation. That was way back 1991. So I'd like to point out that the most important thing is in relation to the entry of workers here, and for this build-up is that the visa waiver program must be enforced here, and it will emanate from the voice of the Guam people, and in effect this will have a deeper impact as to your self-determination and in your quest to be a state of the United States of America. So I'd like to point out that in the end it is up to the people of Guam to determine the main issue of the U.S. Homeland Security is whether or not the Guam people can entertain or can sufficiently police people who will enter the territory and make sure that they will not be illegal aliens here. So that is a question that cannot be addressed solely to the discretion of the U.S. federal government, but must be answered by the people of Guam.
Just real quickly, because I didn't want anyone to have a different impression, but when you said on Guam's quest for self-determination, the possibility of being a state, we've not actually gone through our self-determination. It's a process that we're really working on. Because we are a territory, they have basically said that there are only 3 status in which that can address, and that would be independence, yes, statehood, and then the third will be free association. So, I mean, even with that, of course, Congress or the U.S. is telling us what we should consider and not so much what we want. The other thing that I also want to make very clear because of the listening audience is that although, yes, we may be looking to get some ideas on what you've actually gone through because of the military buildup, but I want you to know as well is that your experiences in which bases were actually closed, because in our case, Tijan was closed, and we didn't do, of course, what you did, where you turned that whole area into a business district, and it became a booming district in which maybe the landowners could have benefited, you see, from it. Now, so there are those in our community who feel that we want the military buildup because of all the economic benefits, but then there are those who feel then is that we don't want to be dependent on the military buildup. We don't want the negative impact from the military buildup. We want to be able then to look at other ways in which we would be able to develop our island economically, and and to be able to decide what that is. So by learning what you've done actually by the closure of these bases and how you've developed that is something to consider as well, because there are a lot of things that are happening right now in the world, as what happened in Japan. And there's, of course, the possibility of the buildup actually slowing down. And then you also know what's happening in Okinawa, where the community and the mayor and their governor, are objecting to this. Then the third, we know that the Diet was actually having a very difficult time in passing their budget, and whether more investment should be placed and the transfer these dollars for the military buildup. So there's so many other exterior factors that are happening that we can't put all of our eggs in one basket. And so and that's why we like to be able to learn from you as well. Interest, Bowdoin? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Along the same lines, and just to expound upon it, Senator Mana Silva Tyrone brought up, I think what another issue that we need to really address, and this may not be the forum because these are some very heavy and deep issues, and that's why we look forward to this just being the very first of many more meetings between us. And one is with the military buildup. I guess the idea is that after the U.S. base is closed in the Philippines, there must have been some environmental issues that you discovered. And those are some of the things that we really need to get our arms around, because instead of a closure, we're going to see a buildup. So we want to know what you found so that we could actually perhaps address it at the front end to make sure we mitigate any potential hazards that may be coming down our road that we may not be aware of. I think from the experiences that you've had in the Philippines, we could definitely learn what we need to do to be more proactive to protect our environment. And I think that's a very important issue going forward. And again, this may not be the forum in which that can be addressed, and we do look forward to a consequential meeting or meetings after this. And I think that's one of the important issues we need to try to understand. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I understand that some of the delegation here have some questions that you may want to ask the Director of the Department of Labor. So, Leah Beth, you're welcome to come and join us if anyone has any question. Yes, please. Sure, while you're coming up, then,
As we look toward building our local labor workforce, are there any opportunities that you could foresee where we could partner your education system in training our local workforce? Or do you know of any opportunities as such?
Bring to Guam the technology and livelihood program that they have in the Philippines. It's very successful, and we can mirror that training that you guys do, so that it's very, very broad and comprehensive training, from air conditioning to mechanic to everything. Welding also, heavy equipment operated.
Do you mind if you can speak into the mic? Okay, thank you.
The director of TESDA is Congressman Congressman Tugna's brother-in-law.
Oh, okay. Then maybe we
That's
can
why,
talk.
maybe you can expound.
Yeah. So if you can share to us, how can we, help?
Well, currently, Madam Speaker, if I may, currently, it's not, I don't think that it is in the pipeline. So what we can do here as legislators for this upcoming, first and foremost, for this upcoming 2012 budget, we would require that particular department agency to increase their funds so that they will have funds to address this particular request of foreign partners. So first and foremost, we need the budget for that, because right now we do not have a budget for that. But the first thing that we must do is, on behalf, I do not want to commit my colleagues here, but the primary thing for us to do is for that particular government agency to have a budget first, and from there we can work on this.
Okay.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Well, just two things. One on the skill sets that you're looking at for training, and again, I go back to technology transfer, and particularly, most probably, you would be looking at, on your end, more the higher level skills that the new digital economy would also require. So you're talking about film, you're talking about web development, web design, software programming, that sort of thing. And that's probably something we can help with as well from our country. The other thing, and this is the other question I'd like to ask, and this is with regards to how foreign investments can come in. Is the Guam legislature solely in charge of the tax measures of this territory? Are you independent when it comes to determining the tax regime of Guam, or is that something that has to be taken off island to be discussed?
Well, our tax system actually mirrors the federal taxes as well. But in terms of increasing taxes, that's solely then the responsibility, yes, of the legislature, and more importantly, is to actually even put it before the people in the referendum to ask them if they would want to see this type of a tax increase. I know that the governor in his inaugural address and said that he will not raise taxes, and I think everybody in the legislature basically said that as well. Now, if there are new types of fees maybe that could be put in place, or new forms of taxes, then that's a little bit different than what we currently have.
Are you looking at tax breaks for new industries or new sectors? That is what
We've always, there are many introductions of bills in which we want to give tax breaks, yes, to our people, and businesses as well. We have even qualifying certificates to help businesses, where they don't pay taxes up to a certain dollar amount for a certain number of years, stipulating that they must hire so many locals in their companies. For businesses that is totally new, that we don't have on the island, as a means to encourage them. So that's one way, but there are definitely other ways in which legislations have been introduced and have passed actually where tax breaks are given. The big drawback, however, with that is that when you do that, then you reduce, of course, the revenues in which the government will be able to collect because of those exemptions.
Well, yes, Madam Speaker, the reason I bring that up is because one of the things that happened in the Philippines, we have a government organization called PEZA, which is the Public Estate Zone Authority, and they've been giving tax breaks or tax holidays to certain industries, and one of the industries that has really benefited from that is the business process outsourcing industry. We have overtaken India on voice, and we're fast catching up in the other higher value sectors of business process outsourcing. So, and from discussions with them, and it's been a lot of give and take when I was still mayor of Taguig. It's a global marketplace. These guys are really looking for places to go, and it's not just a question of my city versus the next city. The decisions are basically this country versus another country. So the tax regimes really are one of the things that determine where these locators will choose to set up shop. And that's one of the things that I think we're mentioning here, because if that's an industry you would like to address and attract, it will require some sort of financial incentives to get them going.
And those are, like I said, normally the QCs are qualifying certificates for new industries.
I know that the Philippine government is a pretty bulky industry in itself, and I'm just curious, because I have heard that there have been some improvement in some of your agencies using technology to improve the processes, to digitize things, and that's an area that I believe our government would also be interested in, begging and borrowing the kind of concepts behind improving the processes. And I was just curious, are any of you familiar with any of these particular efforts or associated with that? Or not?
Yeah, I think most of us who are involved, again, going back to my previous job, we were voted by the World Bank as the most business-friendly city in the country in 2008 and 2010 as well. And a lot of that had to do with migrating to computerized systems. So unless you're able to do that, and if you keep on insisting on a manual system for governance with an avenue for manual intervention, which is the source of a lot of the corruption, then you're never going to improve your system. So definitely, I think the whole country has been pushing for that. It's happening in certain locations faster than it is in others. But definitely, there are pockets of excellence in the Philippines, and you can go look at that. And most countries, if not all, are really headed in that direction. So if that's something you'd like to look at as well, yeah, I'm sure we can give you samples.
So I know there was a request, someone had handed a note to me saying that some of you were interested in getting maybe some information from the Department of Labor, and that's the reason why they're here. So feel free to go ahead and address your questions to them.
I seem to be doing a lot of the talking. We'd like to know how large is the Filipino labor force here in Guam, and what particular industries they're in.
Greg Massey is
Well, with regards to H2, we're running about 90% Filipino workers in our H2 program. There's about 1,700 workers right now. I've got numbers coming out for this month, but that's what it looks like. The numbers from other countries are petering off because the Philippines there's a list of countries that are eligible for H2. In other industries, I'd have to defer our Bureau of Labor Statistics for other visa categories. But for the most part, we're seeing mostly workers from the Philippines coming in on the H2 program. H2B is temporary non-immigrant workers. Yeah, H1s would be for your professionals, and then you have various others coming in under other like intercompany transfers and investor type of visas.
Madam Speaker, are the H2 workers Filipino citizens?
Yes.
All right. Let me retract my statement earlier. If they are Filipino citizens and they have the money to go back to the Philippines, in relation to the question whether they can be skilled, it requires a certain amount of money for them to go back there and to train. So with your endorsement, there will be a bunch of Filipino workers coming from Guam, which will also return here. So if they go there, we can work something in relation to the TESDA department. So in that case, your question or the need will be addressed already. But this will require a particular measure from the Guam legislature as well as from the department agency itself. So because I think that particular agency, TESDA, will recognize this group of workers for them to be trained if they are a group and it is sanctioned by the Guam legislature. Because anyway, if they will go there, since they are Filipinos, if they go there, they can easily be trained because that is open to all Filipino citizens.
Actually, the need, yes, immediately for the military buildup, will be H2 laborers because a lot of it will be construction work. And the reason for the recruitment of a high number of alien laborers is only because we do not have the population or the individuals who are skilled in the trades and or those who are currently unskilled or untrained or unemployed that we can go. Because if we can go and get every single individual able-bodied person on the island, an FSM, that we could train, we would. The biggest stumbling block, of course, for us would be the money to be able to have these individuals trained, because they could be trained at the Guam Community College, and they could also be trained at the Guam Trades Academy. Granted, they would not be able to crank out all of these individuals, 40,000 laborers, in a year or two, so that's why there will be a need to go out and recruit for those additional individuals. But what we would like to see, of course, and I know we had that discussion just yesterday with two individuals that came in from the Department of Interior, that, that Congress or Department of Interior to take into consideration the possibility of, providing some, funds to do just that, the training of, the individuals who are here who are currently unemployed or not skilled in that particular area, or retrain them, to be able to change their careers as well. Because the one biggest fear we have is that when this military buildup starts to go up and reaches its peak, there will be a drop. And when that happens, of course, we can't have all these additional, laborers really on Guam, both, skilled laborers and even those in the professional area. So what we're trying to do is to try to take care, like I said earlier, of those that we have, in Guam. The reason that the need as well, again, the second reason for H2 laborers is the fact that when there is that drop and the buildup stops, then those numbers, are returned, that then they don't end up then being absorbed by the community or burdened by the community, because then there won't be any jobs here. There'd be a lot of empty, houses. There would be unemployment again will be really high, and I think it's a disservice to anyone if we're going to give them the hopes of that after all this is done there would actually be more work for them, when in fact the military understand that would not be the case. So we have to be very careful when we say that we want to be able to train. We really need to look at the areas that we want. So the H2 workers is not necessarily a problem per se, in the sense that we can't, the governor will have to declare that there is a need. And when that happens, of course, then these companies will be able to bring in the workers. And then when the work is done, they'll be returned. There's another group of individuals that we're going to need, that we're starting to see a drain right within even the government of Guam, are some of these professionals that are being picked up by these private companies who are coming out here, like engineers, you see, accountants, you see, architects, you name them, because these are everyone that has to do with building and construction. And of course, with the number of people that are going to be here, the other professionals we're going to need will be doctors and nurses, you see, and teachers. You name it, we're going to need them. Of course, again, is always that question: what happens when the military buildup is done?
Yeah, sorry, Madam Speaker, may I ask if we've started already the military construction, the bases? The bases, have we started, are we starting early, or have we started the construction?
The military has been, submitting, of course, different projects as part of their National Defense Authorization, Act, to be able to start to make preparations in the building inside the base. So that is ongoing. The big projects have not started outside of Guam, and I know that recently the governor said this, that with the signing of the programmatic agreement, there is this $1 billion of monies that are available now for projects to actually, start. So, but we haven't seen it. I heard just last week, I was actually approached that what the military has done in a case that concerns us is that when we've been always saying that first rights of refusal should be given to the locals and the companies who are here, and the military held off for some time and did a sole source and gave a big contract to a company outside of Guam, and actually we have companies here in Ireland that can do the exact same thing. And that's what, we don't want to see, because we want to be able to have everyone in this community benefit from this buildup.
Would you happen to know, Madam Speaker, if till when the military construction will be?
They're saying, they originally started to say 2014, and I had a conversation with some of the officials, and they're saying now even 2017. So that means it's continuously being pushed back because of what's actually happening outside that we actually have no control of. So, but an exact startup date and an end date is, still up in the air, but those are dates that we're hearing being thrown around. Department of Labor, anything else you want to add?
Well, what we're seeing is some of the projects may be starting, but a lot of them are design build, so there's a big design phase before any of that happens, so we probably won't see a lot of activity for, like you'd said, for some time still. You know, but it's coming. We're seeing, there's 2 projects I think that were awarded, but they were small. There's a working dog kennel that was a relocation of that, and then, yeah, something in Upper Harbor.
Upper Harbor War.
Not anymore. I'm finished. Thank you. Yeah, Madam Speaker, going back to the mandate of your government of the right of first refusal on the workers, it seems that what you're telling us is that you need a technical skills sharing agreement with the government. Is that what you're saying? You need that, or what you need from our government is that we can share our technical knowledge on those skills workers.
Well, it's actually a little of everything, seriously, because we haven't had this experience, like I said, since World War II. And, we're a little bit more now, of course, educated, we're a little bit more knowledgeable than we did, 62 years ago. And there's a great concern that we don't want to make some of the mistakes that others may have made. We like to learn from others. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. It always has been in the DEIS, at least with that, they brought consultants from off-island to tell us basically what the impact would be and how we should mitigate, when in fact, you would think that that type of information should come from the local people, but they have not even looked to us. So we're having to go out on our own now to either read this voluminous document, which we did. Now is trying to be able to get access some information so we know how we're going to deal with this, and whether in the legislature introduce legislation maybe that would provide some restrictions or steps or procedures for things to be done in terms of how do we protect our environment, how do we protect the island in that respect. So yes, it's going to be a lot of information. Now, in terms of whether we have monies that are going to be available to go and give out contracts, we don't have it. As a matter of fact, the military had given us some money, and when we hired this company to assist us, this company had actually done work for the military, and then when we want them to build a case for us, we found out that they can't do it because they've done work for the military, and they have this inside information, I suppose, and they told us that you literally can't do that, just hire somebody to try to build a case for Guam against them. So, we're in a situation, of course, where we don't have the luxury of having, monies to be able to go out and try to get the best of these consultants who can help us and even fight for us. We're very fortunate that we were able to get an attorney from the National Historic Preservation Trust to be able to take, and as pro bono, to take our case to the courts, in this whole NEPA process about the DEIS. And we're very fortunate that happened, but we don't have that luxury of having monies to do this.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank you for your government for taking care of our OFWs, especially when they get sick here in your place. But perhaps we could restudy the OFWs back in the Philippines, that whenever they leave for foreign country, especially here, we would restudy the mandatory health insurance
just in case they would get sick, it would be a burden in your part. That's all, Madam Speaker.
And I really appreciate that because, now granted, we don't have all the answers, and we care about what happens, of course, to the individuals who, are on island. We're concerned that the United States, the military, the United States, I guess, who've entered some kind of agreement with certain countries, and they have an obligation to those individuals, but then have not really come through, like, for example, with the FSM, that when they come here, and I don't blame them, they want a better quality of life. Every human being, would want that for themselves and their families. But then because of the agreement, the United States is supposed to pay for those impact to the jurisdictions who are, receiving or housing, these individuals. And health is a very expensive, one of the most expensive, for us to handle, because naturally we don't turn anyone away. We're just a community that will take everyone in, and our hospital is already, as of yesterday, I heard, $7 million, behind, and unable even to pay for their employees' retirement. So, that's how bad the situation is. But because they're going to burden the island and taking, of course, and doing this build-up and bringing in laborers, it's really incumbent upon the Department of Defense, Department of Navy, and U.S. Congress to be able to make sure that the workers that they bring in is that they do address their health issues. How they're going to do it, I don't know. Our hospital, we only have one hospital. It's every day. We look at a newspaper and we see this little box on the left-hand side that tells us whether we are at capacity or we have no more available beds, and that we have patients sitting in the hallways, or in the emergency room. A lot of our people go to the Philippines, yes. Our insurance companies have allowed that, which has really helped us and families tremendously, because the cost is definitely, much, cheaper, of course, than sometimes for them to have the procedure done here, or even to go to the mainland. So, please don't get us wrong. A lot of our people really appreciate the fact that when, we go there, that they have really taken care of a lot of our people, and we appreciate that. But we don't want, of course, where, if your workers should come here and we can't take care of their health because we don't have the hospital, our local hospital, the capacity to take care of even our own people right now, much less, of course, in the military. They have their own naval hospital, but that's just for their own, servicemen and their own constituents as well. Nobody else can go there. So where then, and who will take care, of the workers when they're ill or there's an accident?
Madam Speaker, if I may, and I want to thank everybody for being here today. But Madam Speaker, these are some very serious and some very deep issues that need to be discussed further that won't be resolved here, but maybe in continuing dialogue. Anybody, and of course we've all been through this ordeal of going to the Philippines and catching the flight out to come back to Guam. I think our guests who have been going on are basically running on gas fumes at this point, Madam Speaker. We do have another function that will be coming up. That might be another place where we can then speak individually, one-on-one with everybody. And again, Madam Speaker, I don't mean to be rude, but it might be a good time to take a break. Now that some of the congressmen understand the issues that we go through in our head, we might be able to discuss this in a more informal setting over dinner, and then perhaps plan on when we can discuss this in the Philippines. But Madam Speaker, if I may, we do have an invitation for dinner, and this might be an appropriate time.
We're going to be joining you up there as well, and I'd just like to take this opportunity again is to thank you. You've been very gracious enough to stay awake. I understand, you have a very early arrival. And yes, like we said earlier, it was a friendship, a goodwill, venture for us. This is a start. We like to keep the dialogue, going, because you guys are the movers and shakers, of course, in the Philippines that can make a lot of these things happen. So we look forward to further dialogues, and yes, leave your cards with all of us, and we definitely will be emailing you and more than likely even visiting some of you. And I know some of you said you'll be back even in May, so contact us, and thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, in behalf of the delegation, we would like to thank the Madam Speaker, Speaker Judith Juan-Pat, and of course, Senator Tina Barnes and Senator Mana Tawaran. Yeah, Mana Tawaran, but I think Congress Senator Yamashita left already. And most certainly, would like to thank again former Senator. Sorry. And Sam, and of course, former Senator James Espaldon, thank you very much for the opportunity. To the staff of the legislature, for I know, well, I think in Congress, like usually at 5 o'clock we're done, and like it's almost 6 o'clock in your watch, and thank you for the employees and the staff who were here, and Madam Speaker, in behalf of the 284 members of the House of Representatives in the Philippines, with a very lean delegation of, you can see, very young and active gentlemen, and handsome for you, handsome. It has been very, very enriching, and it has been very, very educational for the young legislators in Congress. And hope this will not be the last, but only the beginning of a very good discussion for the future, for the country, for our Filipino people, and of course for the Guam. And hope to see all of you for a rematch in the Philippines. And I hope that the Speaker will be there. He would be honored and would be very happy if he could visit us. And would like to appeal once more to the Filipinos who are here. To be honest, you made us proud that Guam has high regards for the Filipino community who are staying here. And I could only pray that they will continue it. And Madam Speaker, I would like to invite them once again that tomorrow's it's just a basketball game, but the proceeds will go to the tsunami and earthquake victims in Japan. And I am appealing, I am praying and hoping that you will join us, contribute a little. It might happen to us, it might happen to Philippines, it might happen to anybody, but we really ask for your help to make the event successful. And your help, small help tomorrow during the game, would fuel also more talks with the Guam government and the Philippine government. So again, I appeal to the Filipino community in Guam. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for being so patient, and it has been very educational. It has been very enriching. Thank you again.
I just wanted to say before the game tomorrow, make sure you eat all the lechon and lumpia for your energy. Thank you.
But there will be lechon waiting for you in the Philippines already.